Hello, everybody. Before we dive into the webinar, let's wait a few minutes still for people to be able to join. While we're waiting, where's everyone tuning in from today? Feel free to drop it in the comments. I myself am currently in the Netherlands, so in Rotterdam. How about you, Erwin and Andre?
Yeah, so I'm located here in Amsterdam, also in the Netherlands.
And I'm located in the Netherlands as well, but 20 minutes from Utrecht.
Super nice. So we're all from the same country, but in different locations. Very exciting. Yeah, should we get started? Awesome. So my name is Anete, and I'm the content marketing manager at Speap, and I'll be your host for this webinar. As you've noticed, we're also joined by Andre and Erwin. I think it would be nice if they would take a moment to introduce themselves and maybe tell a bit more about what it is that you do.
Sounds good. Andre, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, thanks. My name is Endre Davids. I'm the founder and CEO of Seamly, and we are a conversational presentation and integration layer which facilitates that the clients of our clients or employees of our clients can arrange as many things as they want in a conversational manner. And together we're going to be talking about a mutual kind.
Thanks.
Great. Yeah, so my name is Erwin. I'm one of the two founders of a company called Speap. And it's always, I think, interesting to share where this all started. About 12 years ago, I was studying at the university here in Amsterdam, but I also had a part-time job in retail. And as a frontline worker without access to company email, company phone, obviously, I experienced how difficult it is to communicate, to get a message from head office or to communicate with your direct colleagues. It was very time consuming. And in that time, we talk about 2010, 2011, apps were upcoming, iPhone was launched a few years earlier, and I decided to make communications more digital for, in this case, frontline workers. And nowadays we work for about 700 brands in the world. So yeah, that's about me.
Awesome. Thank you both for these introductions. And I think next up, let's maybe discuss a bit what you can expect from this webinar. We will definitely dive into how AI can transform communication for the frontline teams, share some practical tips on using AI, also look at a case study from Basic Fit, showing how an integration of a smart chatbot improved their internal communication. And we're also going to briefly be touching upon what the future holds as AI keeps on evolving and changing how we communicate continuously. Also important to note that we have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to drop your questions in the comments section anytime during the webinar. So now that we've covered the introductions and the agenda, let's get started, shall we? Interestingly, Gartner suggests that 75% of large companies will be using AI in at least one part of their business by 2025. And granted, internal communications is no exception when it comes to it. On a related note, as some of you might have noticed, Meta very recently announced that they're shutting down Workplace to indeed focus more on AI and the metaverse. I think this move highlights just how important AI is becoming in shaping the future and also shaping the way we communicate internally. Andre, could you maybe tell us a bit more about how AI has changed over time and what are the biggest improvements and challenges you've noticed?
Yeah, well, if we look at, let's say, in the last year and a half, a lot of things have changed, of course, with the arrival of ChatGPT. However, in the period just before that, AI was especially really good in interpreting language and dissecting that and making sure that it can provide answers. However, in the last let's say year and a half, it has proven not only to be very great in interpreting languages, but also creating content in multimodality as well, creating content in text, in visuals, in video, in code, in songs and poets, all things you can imagine that you've seen in the last couple of years yourself. So what the main steps have been in the last couple of, well, let's say 18 months, in my opinion, are in the area of productivity boosters, how it can help employees and colleagues and persons all around the world, but also how it can create content prepared for how it can prepare content, which can be reviewed by an actual person, up to the last step that we all see ahead of us, where it can fully automatically take care of a conversation without a person or an actual colleague having a role in that in the next couple of months.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, granted, a lot has happened and a lot keeps on happening at a very rapid speed, right? And that indeed leaves internal comms to be subject of change as well, and how they're done and how content is being created for it. Erwin, what do you think are some of the internal comms challenges frontline teams face, and how AI has been and will continue to be a potential solution for tackling those?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, frontline workers are typically disconnected. They don't have company email. They don't have. Sometimes they do, but they often do not have a company device like a phone, or especially not a computer to sit behind. And if they have a computer, it's often in a back office that multiple people are using with like some kind of a generic account or a shared account amongst multiple employees. So if you think about that situation, it becomes extremely difficult to bring information in a relevant way to frontline workers. If you imagine posting paper on bulletin boards, which yes, still is happening today, the post-its are all around, but maybe only 10% is relevant for me in my specific job title or job role. So those manual paper-based options to communicate create a difficulty when it comes to relevancy. Also a way to collect feedback. We often hear that the best ideas originate from frontline, because frontline workers typically deal with machines, or they deal with customers or guests. And the best ideas for innovation or certain improvements come from that frontline, but are very difficult to collect because these people tend to be quite disconnected. So then we talk about, of course, or we see a lot of language barriers that exist in distribution centers or logistics, where people with like multiple languages are working. And that, of course, is also a challenge when it comes to internal comms. Certain challenges when it relates to compliance or certain safety instructions, to get that in a quick and timely manner to the frontline workers, again, in a relevant way. And last but not least, when it comes to frontline workers that do interact with customers or guests, is to have them bring the best customer experience or guest experience and what that means. Often there's a miscommunication in what the organization thinks a great experience is for their customers and guests versus what the employee feels it needs to be. So, and then how AI can help with these challenges. It becomes, of course, apparent that it is very easy to create a tailored and relevant information channel when you look at some of the interests or the job types or locations or regions that people are in, and surface that content that is relevant for them and not showing anything else, so that it is hyper targeted or laser targeted, if you will. Collecting feedback and drawing conclusions from, let's say, big data, and of course that will evolve over time, but like the more data you collect on behavior from frontline workers in, let's say, a digital solution powered by AI, will give you a lot of valuable insights. Showing content that they search for quicker. So one of the things, of course, that we're talking about here today is the Speap and Seamly integration. And we've seen with our customers that is using that people find answers to their questions, or they find certain files or materials significantly faster because it's surfaced to them in a very easy and proactive way. And then, of course, the auto translation, quite powerful if people work and behave in different languages, that you can just like see it in your own language and it's like properly translated automatically. So I think that's AI and how powerful it can be.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Erwin. How about you, Andre? Do you have anything else to add about how you see AI potentially revolutionizing the way internal comms are done moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the points that Erwin highlighted as well. There's a lot of content available for frontline employees, well, in document procedures, presentations, etc., or internal documents and knowledge bases that can be accessed. However, as an employee, you need to go through that to find the answer, hopefully somewhere in a document that you have access to. However, consumers and employees have become, well, we can either say have become more lazy or have become more efficient, and are always looking for the best and easiest way to get access to info. Um, there is no better and easier way to get access to info by just asking your question in a natural manner, saying, "Hey, what is the answer to blah 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 question?" And that you just get presented the right answer in the right sentence. Just in two sentences presented to you, rather than that you're being presented 100 documents that have been found where you maybe can find the answer. And presenting those knowledge bases not in piles of data but in a conversational manner indeed helps the frontline employees a lot, and you can only do that with usage of AI. Some listeners may think, well, if it's always that easy, then that every question can be answered into. It can't be the fact that that every question can already be answered in two sentences, and that is indeed correct. So sometimes you need to ask, well, deep dive questions to make sure that you can present that one answer that the employee is looking for, rather than showing them, well, pages of content that he or she needs to go through itself.
Yeah, definitely. That is indeed valuable because there needs to be a correct balance between both, right? Between reducing the information, but also providing enough for the employee to find the answer to their initial question. I think that also brings us very nicely to the next question about what are some of the things that should be considered when using AI for internal communications, because I'm sure there's plenty of things to take into consideration, from data privacy to security and compliance.
Yeah.
Erwin, how do you see that resonating in the market? And same questions for you, Andre.
Yeah, I would say you can use AI, I would say, as a personal assistant to quickly create content, or at least like a start on it. Make sure also that like cultural sentiments are being adhered to, at least like for inspiration, I would say. Um, because AI, like you can really use also like to, I don't know, like I have an example of a couple of days, like where I looked at an annual report. It was about 200 pages. And nowadays it's just possible like to have AI summarize it for you and draft like a certain campaign or a piece of communication that is tailored to frontline workers, how you can translate the key items from your annual report into messaging to frontline workers in a very concise way. If I would do that without AI, that would have taken me hours and hours, and now I can just like be much more time efficient when it comes to creating that type of content. Now, there's always a need to review that properly before posting it, but like you have a quick start on it and it will save you a lot of time. So I think especially when internal communicators are getting like they are swamped, they have super busy jobs, they can use this personal assistant to save time.
Yeah, definitely. That is indeed very valuable, especially with extremely busy schedules. Do you think there's any specific way for companies to assess whether using an AI tool in internal comms is paying off for them?
Well, that in my view, that probably depends on the extensiveness on your organization and the level of knowledge or level of knowledge that is required, and which manner that knowledge can be digitized as well. And to be honest, I think you very rapidly end up to the point that there indeed are options and possibilities, or even necessities to do so.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is a very nice segue into discussing the case study from Basic Fit, because that is the most real life hands on example that really showcases the value AI can bring. And yeah, maybe before discussing the case study itself, I can explain a bit more about what Basic Fit is. So it's Europe's largest and fastest growing fitness operator. There's approximately 3.8 million club members that are using both the gyms and their fitness app. There's around 1,400 clubs across Europe in more than 6 countries, and the total amount of employees accumulates to around 8,000 and more. And first, maybe let's talk about what might be some of the reasons why companies could consider implementing a smart chatbot to solve their internal communications. Andre, what are some of the challenges, considering you're working closely with these sort of things in Seamly, that you notice?
Yeah, well, actually, it's all about streamlining information. Streamlining information, getting the right information to the right colleagues in the right manner and in easy understandable, or right timing in an easy understandable manner as well. And I think if we'll look at our organizations or specific organizations, it won't be strange that you'll probably find an intranet. You'll probably find some notifications going that are being shared from, let's say, internal channels like as in Slack, or emails that are being sent over, or training materials presented in PowerPoints. And if, from an organizational point of view, if you create such a piece of content, then it's very tempting, well, just to summarize it in 2 slides, because that's easy. But if you look at it from the employee standpoint, then if you add up all those channels or information layers that are being used, I won't be surprised that if a colleague needs to take 5, 6, 7 channels into consideration, because I haven't even mentioned WhatsApp channels that you maybe use for your manager or your regional manager or your internal team. And if we're all working 24 hours a day, then it can be, let's say, rather easy to do so. But if you, let's say, only work 2 days a week, then it will probably take you, from those 16 hours, it will probably take you somewhere up to 2 to 3 hours already in getting the right info, getting the right answers, following all the mutations. So from an employee point of view that creates the content, it can be easy, well, just to create something new. But from an employee that needs to process that info, it's well, you can do a lot of work by streamlining that information in a right and proper manner.
Yeah, definitely. I recently read this article about what is called the toggling tax. I think it was by Harvard Business Review, that stated we switch through apps around 1,200 times nonstop just to find the right information. And indeed, AI definitely has the potential, and in this case, the smart chatbot has the potential to streamline that even more. But maybe a question for you, Erwin. Could you tell a bit more about the situation Basic Fit faced that made them decide to use this within Speakup?
Yeah, absolutely. So Basic Fit is using Speakup now for a few years. And typically when we start deploying our solution, it is a journey. You have a starting point, and then once you roll it out and you start using it and you start getting comfortable with it, and the majority of your associates are on it, then you have created basically a fundament to further build upon. And one of the things that we've now added on top of Speakup is the smart chatbot powered by Seamly. so that frontline workers, wherever they are, because like we talk about trainers, people in maintenance, in cleaning, but also like location managers, wherever they are, they can just like open up Orange Connect. That's the name for Speak App at Basic Fit, because it's like a white labeled solution. So they open up the Orange Connect app. They will be immediately in the know about important information in a relevant manner. But also have easy access to the chatbot where they can interact with it and ask questions. For example, if they have an issue with a guest with their membership, or they have a question about it and they quickly want to find that answer. So it was a very logical step in the journey to add this capability on top of the employee app that we launched with them, to I would say save time, streamline operations, and create more value for employees using our application to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. Question to Andre. How was the process of integrating the smart chatbots within SpeakApp? Maybe a question actually to both of you.
Yeah, the good thing is that we already had a chatbot running for end clients for Basic Fit. So what we did is we reused quite a bit of content from the consumer chatbot, but made content differentiations based on specific questions that required different answers for employees rather than for consumers. So it was quite easy to add that additional, let's say, target audience or user group. And we could reuse all the interfaces that we already had built, and the implementation was pretty easy to do by just adding a URL.
Yeah, that indeed does sound super simple and seamless and easy to implement. Erwin, what were some of the more specific challenges or a challenge that's got solved as a result of this, and what were more tangible metrics that arose from that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So what you can see here also on the screen and on the desktop, you see that Ruby. That is how the chatbot is called. Like when you log in into our platform on desktop, then you will see like it being animated on the right bottom, so it immediately draws attention. You can click it open and then you can interact with it. And it is a menu item, or like a part of our app launcher in our app, so that you can click on chatbot Ruby, tap on it, and then you can interact with it. So it helped with especially like frontline workers finding answers much quicker. It also helped reducing the caseload of Basic Fit's internal support department. And I have some numbers to share. They lowered about 31% of phone call inquiries by frontline workers because they could now find the answers in the chatbot. It was about 19% less caseload by email. And these numbers we realized in the first few months of deploying it. So it will only get bigger and bigger, so that the impact will also be greater. We, of course, also asked the employees to rate their happiness or satisfaction with the Ruby chatbot and how helpful it is in their work. And we got like a recognition rate by over 70%, which is like extremely impressive if you ask me. We first launched it in France, so all the clubs in France started using it, and of course in their own language. And we're now, because of the pilot or this test has become so successful and time saving, it's now being implemented in all countries that Basic Fit is active in. So finding answers quicker and reducing caseload on head office support, internal support teams significantly, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, that's super amazing results already. Really excited to see where this takes everything in the future as well.
And I think it's good not only to emphasize that these are the direct effect to the employees, making their their enrollment easier or creating lower barriers to access information, but in a majority of cases also create a better end customer experience, because that employee will probably also find that it will also search for that information due to the fact that he was confronted with a question that he didn't have the answer to. So, well, I think it cuts two sides, not only not only the employee satisfaction, but also the customer satisfaction in the end as well.
Yeah, I think it's really a win-win for everybody involved, starting with the customer, the employee, and also ending up with the people who are responsible for getting this information to the employees in a super effective manner, right? I think this brings us to the next section on the future of AI and internal communications. And for this, I'd like to ask both of you to answer two questions. First one being, as AI gets better or worse, I leave that up to you to answer. What ethical things do you think internal communicators should keep in mind when using it for communications?
Andre, do you want to start? Or
Yeah. Ethical issues are, of course, a topic that needs to be paid a lot of attention to. How do you go about profiling, for instance? But there is another topic that I think that requires attention to as well, and that is data accuracy. Because you can easily, or rather easily, build AI-driven assistants, but what they do require is a data source. And if that data source with different documents for employees or different articles from knowledge bases or presentations or Word documents, whatever you can think of, but there, if that data is not accurate and there are no, it needs to be free from contradictions, in that sense that it needs to be accurate and needs to be concise, and all documents need to prevent to contradict each other. And if you don't get that data source well in accessible and organized, then there's a challenge to build great AI assistance. So apart from ethical issues, data accuracy is something that I think we all need to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah. Erwin, anything else to add?
yeah, I totally agree with the data accuracy is definitely something to consider. I do think that AI still is like we are just starting to use it, right? And I would say maybe even more the early adopters now than the majority still. And AI tools also request for feedback. So after they give a response, to rate whether that response was accurate or not. I think like utilizing those type of feedback elements can be very helpful to improve your model. Um, I also expect that there will be some form of like a quality mark at some time, like or a verification, like that the data is indeed like reliable. Such a trademark is um, maybe seen here and there, but definitely not everywhere. But probably will become the standard in the near future. So I think that's very important. And for organizations, and especially if you imagine using AI for internal comms, you should definitely also consider the confidentiality part. Certain internal messages are supposed to be internal and not to be going external. So we always suggest like have proper rules in place to begin with, but also make sure that you have a reliable and yeah not the free version, but like a business version of those tools so that your data is kept secure and it's not potentially being landing in your competitors' hands. So, and especially when it comes to internal communications that you maybe want to rewrite because of you want to try to change the sentiment, and you would use a free version, that poses most likely a confidentiality risk. So be aware of that, take action. Lots of organizations and IT teams are already working on this. I've seen quite a lot of customers, or let's say organizations that either hosted their own chatbot capabilities or purchased like a professional business license so that the data is kept confidential. So those are some of the things that I would add here.
Yeah, definitely. Those are some valuable things to keep in mind moving forward. Thank you both for these insights. Before we get to our key takeaways in the Q&A session, I would also like to announce our upcoming webinar on June 6th. The topic will be enhancing productivity for the frontline workers and how that starts with ensuring simplicity in communication. If you want to register, it's super easy. You can scan the QR code on the screen and also visit the same event page later on, because we'll be leaving the link to the upcoming event in the comments there. And before we move into the in the Q&A section, we can very quickly recap the main takeaways of this webinar. So there's 5 things that you should remember when using AI in internal comms. Those being, make sure your AI tools talk like humans, keep things clear and short for easy understanding, because clear and concise communication is key. Train your AI with good data so it gives accurate info, like Andre mentioned as well. That's of utmost importance. Long story short, if you put junk in, you'll get junk out of it. Thirdly, think of AI as a helper, not a replacement. Think of it as your personal assistant in making you do your job more efficiently, as Erwin also talked about earlier. In this situation, it was Basic Fit that used that basically found where humans are most needed and let the smart chatbot take care of that, while the employees could focus on making other things happen. Fourth, plan for the future, where data privacy is absolutely paramount. Keep your employees' data safe, keep your company data safe, and build a trust that AI will use their data in the most responsible way. And also, I think this is an overarching theme for the entirety of the webinar. Use AI to help you out with more repetitive tasks and analyzing the insights you gather and the data you get. This will free up your time for more important things, and then you can use all these learnings gathered from the smart chatbot, for example, for seeing what questions are the most commonly asked from your employees to make your communication even better. And I think that means we're ready for a Q&A session. But I think there's none coming in yet. So if you would like to have any questions answered by both Andre and Erwin, you can type them in the chat. Otherwise, you can always let us know and reach out to us. So to me, Erwin, or Andre separately. And yeah, I think that's it. All right.
Cool. Thank you so much, Anete.
Thank you both for participating.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.